This CenterPoint video will cover the setup of both ACH and direct deposit files on the bank information. Okay, ACH files are used for making electronic payments to vendors, and direct deposit files are used for paying employees electronically. For both of those, we need to do a little bit of setup on our bank account that we're using to make those payments to tell the system what format that file needs to be in. So to do that, we would go to Setup, into Accounts. I would open up the bank account. Now, if you use a different bank account for paying vendors than you use for direct deposit information, then you might need to set this up on under different accounts. I use the same account to pay payroll out of that I make vendor payments from. So I'm going to make my changes to the same account. I'm going to edit that file. And the first step is on the Detail tab over here. There is a place here for a bank routing number and a bank account number. Now, I might have more fields of information on my screen than you have. If you don't have the CenterPoint Check Designer module, you might not have a lot of this information here, but you will have the bank routing number and the bank account number. Now, it does do a validation. Anytime it's asking for the bank routing number, it's going to do a validation as to whether or not it is a correct bank routing number or not. And then you'll put in your company's bank account number. Then we're going to click on the ACH Direct Deposit tab. On the ACH Direct Deposit tab is where we're really going to start beginning to tell the system what that file format needs to look like. Now, you'll have to get this information from your bank. You can usually typically either get the information from either a help file on your bank's website, or you may need to call them. Sometimes you need to enroll in direct deposit or ACH payments, and they'll send you information about what format they need the file in and the specifications of that. And they'll also give you information about how you're going to upload that file to them. Because what we're going to do is we're going to create a file, we're going to store it in a folder that you specify, and then you're going to follow their instructions on how to upload it to the bank. Those files are typically in one of three different formats. They're either a NACHA file, an ASCII file, which is a very much less common format. It's an older format that isn't typically used anymore, or a NACHA modified. Now, really, the NACHA and the NACHA modified are the same file. It's just one has a carriage return between each record and one does not. The one that has the carriage return between each record is the NACHA modified file, and that's the one that's most typically selected for most banks. Okay, so I'm going to start with that one anyway. If they don't really specify in their information, then we can start with one of them. And part of this process of doing either an ACH file or a direct deposit file is if you're first setting it up, after we get all the setup information in, you're going to send a pre-notification file to the bank. And they're going to either reject it or they're going to accept it. And if they reject it, they'll usually send you back information as to which settings we had incorrect. So if we set it to NACHA modified and it should have been NACHA, we can simply just come back to this record and change it. And the same with any of these settings. We can always come back here, change it, and then send a new pre-notification file. After the pre-notification file, it's going to ask what your bank is requesting as the immediate origin of the file. It'll either usually be a bank routing number or a federal EIN number, but occasionally it can be a custom number. So if you select custom number, it opens up the box below where you can type in that custom number. If it is the bank routing number, it's going to pull it from your detail tab over there, the bank routing number, or from the routing number down below here that we'll get to in a little bit. If it is your federal EIN number, then if it is for ACH, it'll pull it from your company setup. And if it is for payroll, for direct deposit files, it'll pull it from your employer setup information. So it's going to pull it from different places depending on which kind of file you're creating. Now, the rest of the information, again, you just have to get from your bank here. The reference code is a optional field. It's a discretionary field. I believe it's 8 characters, and they may require you to put something in there. You can just go ahead and type in whatever they tell you to put in there. The same thing with the discretionary data. That is something that usually goes in the header record of the file. And again, they can tell you whether or not they need that discretionary data in there. It will be defaulted to creating an offsetting debit file for your record. What that means is there's going to be an additional line in the file that is going to be represent the total amount that's going to come out of your bank account for this either direct deposit or for paying these vendors. Some banks want that in the file, some banks don't want that in the file. And again, that might be something that just gets washed out in the pre-notification if they don't indicate whether or not they want that offsetting debit or not. Okay, the prefix number we've defaulted to 1, but you can either go up or down here and either increase it to a higher number or decrease it to a lower number. So we've defaulted it to 1. And with the modifier code, we've defaulted it to the most typical one, which would be Q, but you can change it. That if the bank indicates that they want some header text in the file, you can check that box and put the header text into the file there. If they need a trailer record, you can mark the trailer text and type in what they want that trailer text to be. Okay, they may indicate that they want a batch number on the file, and if so, if they want that batch to begin with 1, you can go ahead and select 1 on that batch number or whatever number you need that to be. Okay, I'm going to skip the information in the middle for a second, and we're going to drop down to the bottom here. Okay, at the bottom, we want to have in here what your bank's Federal Reserve bank name is. Now, that might be the same thing as your bank. So I'm using a larger banking institution here. And so their Federal Reserve bank name is usually the same as the bank name where you bank locally. And it uses the same routing number. But if it does not use the same routing number, this is where we would indicate your bank's Federal Reserve bank's routing number. Okay, again, it does a validation on the routing numbers to make sure that they are valid. Then next to that, you're going to want to put in the processing bank's information. This is the bank where your company banks at. Okay, what's that bank name? What's the routing number? And what is your account number? Okay, in my case, again, like I said, it's the same here. Okay, in the middle, the information that so I skipped there. You only have to fill out what side pertains to you. If you're not doing electronic vendor payments, then you don't need to fill out the ACH information on the left. If you're not doing direct deposits, then you don't need to fill out the information for direct deposit on the right. I happen to be paying both out of the same bank account, so I've set up the information for both. For both of them, you want to indicate what folder on your computer you want those files to be created in. Okay, now I created separate folders, one for my ACH files and one for my direct deposit files. I would probably recommend doing that and not putting them into the same folder. Okay, to direct your system to what folder, you could just click on the button to the far right there and then browse to the location where you want those files. So there's my direct deposit files, and over here I can highlight the folder where I want the ACH files to go and select that. It'll also, when you click on that lookup, if you need to create a new folder, you can right click on your mouse and choose new and then choose folder, and it'll allow you to create a new folder to put it into. Oops, I need to grab that ACH folder again. All right, after that, for both of these files, the name of the file is going to be a 4-digit year, a 2-digit month, and a 2-digit day. Then it's going to have a sequence number after it. So the first file you send that day will be sequence 0, then it'll go up to 1, then to 2, then to 3 in case you send more than one file within the same day. Okay, I happen to like to have a prefix on both of my files so it makes them a little more easily identifiable, especially if you do put them in the same folder. So for my ACH files, I put a prefix of ACH onto the file name. So it'll say ACH, then the 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. With the direct deposit, I put in DD so that it has DD and then the 4-digit month, the 2-digit month, and the 2-digit day, and then the sequence numbers after that. So that's just optional, but it really helps to identify the files a little bit easier if you're using both. Okay, after that, both of those files are going to get created with an extension of .txt at the end of it. If for some reason your bank doesn't like that extension, we could change it to something else or we could delete the extension out of there. Now, for the direct deposits, in that direct deposit file, when you're trying to troubleshoot it, it's really a good idea to have something in there that helps you identify which record is for which employee. So what do you want that employee identifier to be? Do you want it to be their social security number with the first 5 digits suppressed? Nothing at all? Social security number with no formatting, or do you want to just use the employee's abbreviation? Okay, so you get options on that. And then the last line of each one of those setups is a description, and that description is typically what's going to show up on your bank statement when you go to do bank reconciliation. So when you get that printed bank statement or that online bank statement from the bank, it'll show that vendor ACH file processed. It'll put this description on it. And for the payroll, that's the description that's going to go on mine. And you could type that in as to whatever you want that to be. Okay, after that, I'm going to click Save and that'll create the file. But before I do, I just want to point out that down here at the bottom, it does allow us to dive a little bit deeper into this setup of this file. You really are only going to want to get into this if for some reason you cannot get the pre-notification file to go through. It may be that we need to come in and maybe hard code something in. So you can go to advanced settings and you could load defaults, which would load all of your information that you set up above into the fields here. And then if we need to hard code or type something different into one of these fields, we can. And then after that setting is done, you would click Save to save the file, and it would use these settings down below. Very often, though, if you're making any changes down there, you're possibly doing that with the help of support. Okay, I'm going to click Save, and that concludes the setup of the direct deposit and the ACH file setup on the bank account. Now, if you're doing ACH files, you still have a setup that needs to be done on each one of the vendors that you're going to be paying electronically. And if you are doing direct deposit, you still have a setup that needs to be done on each one of the employees' records that you're doing direct deposit with. Okay, so you'll want to follow the videos on those sessions.